Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whenever the fuck you're watching this episode. It's another episode of Backyard Blitz brought to you by Backyard Sports. My name is Raul Herrera. Got the full gang with us. Gary Freeze, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Exciting football this past weekend and really exciting matchups for conference championship weekend. So
Interesting sports news. I mean, kind of all around.
yeah, a lot of coach movement this week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Andy sitting pretty. I mean, man's got Lions in a conference championship. You know, thug life, fucking straight kneecaps for days, dog. Ain't a kneecap in sight. Ops just missing kneecaps right now.
Yeah, I kind of fucked my kneecap up today. It's a
Yeah.
sign. It's a
You picked the
sign.
wrong one.
It's a sign. It's just, I mean, look, just holding yourself accountable. You'll even take on your own kneecap if you ain't acting right.
Absolutely.
Get your act right. So,
shit.
well, let's jump into last week, man. We had this is a fantastic weekend of football. Honestly. I mean, so divisional here. Gary rode with Houston and went down with Houston, but what a show, right? It was obvious that Baltimore is prepared. They're in rhythm. Definitely exposed Houston, I think, a little bit, and for noticeable exposures. But ultimately, it doesn't change my opinion on C.J. Stroud. I think what he's done this year is elite. I mean, rookie of the year candidate for sure. Like, he's got to be the lock-in, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's got to be a no contest, I think, at this point.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he plays
D'Amico Ryan's coach of the year. You know what I'm saying? Like, this
Should be.
is-
He's
this
not
isn't
the
a bad-
Vegas favorite right now. I don't know why.
well, this isn't a bad look.
Who's the biggest
Houston
favorite, Gary?
regardless.
It was Stefanski. Last time I checked, a couple of days ago, Stefanski was coach of the year odd favorite.
Crazy, huh?
Yeah. I'm gonna double check it right now in case it's shifted, but yeah.
Yeah. So, Mo, let's go to you. What are your
It's
thoughts on
heavy
this Houston game?
favorite too, and I don't know why. I really don't understand why.
You know, man, listen. Fucking CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
That second pick. Panthers made a mistake. We all know it. We've talked about it over and over again. It is what it is, man. I mean, they had a good season. They went out, kind of swinging. They ran into that buzzsaw, right? The fucking just listen, if you have a favorite team, and I'm talking like favorite in terms of your favorite to win something, Baltimore shits on that. And they don't even care. I mean, there's a couple teams left in the playoffs right now that they beat the shit out of. It is what it is, man. I mean, shout out to D'Amico Ryan, shout out to CJ Stroud, shout out to Tank Dell. Nico Collins came into his own. This team is really got something building here. Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of like, if you're talking about nailing a draft, right? They may not.
Will Anderson might be defensive rookie of the year,
right? And like, I think there's some things to be said about Green Bay had a good draft, Green Bay had a good draft. The Lions had a really good draft. There's teams in there, but like when you land an elite edge rusher, you land a quarterback of the future. I mean, you don't have to hit anything else.
No.
You sprinkle in a guy like Tank Dell. I mean, what else is there to say? Texans in the future fucking looks bright.
Yeah, it really does. I think what happened in this game is we started to see the separation of what a roster that has been built over a tenure of a coach who's been around for fucking 20 years and a GM that one they built this roster under Ozzie Newsome and then made a smooth transition to Ozzie Newsome's basically protege and have continued to build that roster in that image versus a roster that you mentioned it, Mo, they crushed the draft this year. And that is enough to be an upstart team and make some noise, but it wasn't enough to overcome what the Baltimore Ravens are. And that's where I got fooled into believing that the momentum that Houston was carrying was going to be enough to overcome the juggernaut that is the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm going to point it out on the offensive side of the ball because I think Houston stood up well defensively. I think they just got worn down with the Ravens leaning on them and doing what they do best, running the ball right at them and just making that defense defend all 45 yards wide and 100 yards deep, and being able to really grind them with some long drives. Offensively, we saw Houston's got some things, right? But they don't have a complete package yet. It's the interior pressure was real from the Ravens, and they were blitzing Queen and they were blitzing Smith, who are two of the better blitzing middle linebackers in the game, maybe even that we've seen in the last probably 20 to 30 years. They are phenomenal when they are coming into the A gaps and the B gaps against an offense. And Stroud was under pressure very quickly. And I think what we saw was, one, they were missing Tank Dell because obviously the injury get well. We'll see you next year because Tank Dell was having a great season. But Nico ended up really being kind of the only option. And he got loose a couple of times, but it just was never going to be enough. And I think what we saw was Houston was game for a half. And it was 10-10 at the half. The punt return, I thought, would give them some juice coming out of the locker room. Nope. Baltimore went into the locker room and said, listen, we've got to put the clamps on them early. That's what they did. 3 and out for Houston coming out of the locker room. Baltimore started to find their rhythm on offense because they didn't look great on offense in the first half. D'Amico was doing some things, scheming it up the way I thought he would to counteract some of what Baltimore's strengths were, but it just wasn't enough to sustain because they weren't scoring points, and they never knocked Baltimore out of what they wanted to do offensively. 10-10, they can still run their offense the way they want to run it. So on the other side of the ball for Houston, that Baltimore Ravens defense getting that pressure up the middle, it just eventually the levee kind of broke defensively for Houston, and they weren't able to do anything offensively against Baltimore. That defense was number one in total yards, number one in sacks, and number one in turnovers for a reason this season. If you watch that game, you see it on full display in terms of what they are able to bring. I mentioned the athleticism at all 3 levels. Jadeveon Clowney has been a revelation for them this year because they haven't asked him to be any more than what he's been good at in his career in the NFL. Stop the run, maybe get a little bit of pressure on the quarterback, and leave it up to everybody else to do their job. And they're just really good at all 3 levels. It was a slog for Houston, and only scoring a field goal really illustrates just how much of a difference there was between what Baltimore is and what Houston is currently. But I think, Mode, you nailed it on the head, man. For the next 5 years, like, this Houston team is like, they've got a window now, right? They've got and that's what you're always looking for in the NFL. When you have a quarterback, you've got a window. It's your job to build and bust through that window.
I think it was a wash for Houston either way. Like, win, lose, or draw, like they've already capitalized on the season, and I think they've shown now that they're built and now they're loading. Like, they've got the bones, and now it's time to add the strategic positions to get them to a competitive. Like, they're going to be back in the fucking playoffs next year. Like, the NFC, the AFC South is determined.
I'm not sure.
I don't think Jacksonville's going away, and Anthony Richardson looked pretty good in fucking Steichen's offense. So
if I'm Houston,
I like Houston going forward. I don't want to poo-poo on that, but I think the AFC South could be more competitive next year.
If I'm Houston, I look at it in the offseason and I say we need to be able to run the ball.
Yep.
Yeah.
Third worst in the NFL.
Which is what we thought they were going to be able to do this year.
Right. With Pierce, and he just went away and he's gone, and Singletary took over and he's not very good. Third in the league, or third to the bottom of the league in rushing. Yep. 38 yards against Baltimore, while Baltimore almost topped that by 200. Listen, if you want to be able to control a football game or slow things down and pace the other team a little bit defensively, you need to be able to run the ball on offense. So just without that, it's going to be tough, especially with a young quarterback, no matter how skilled he is or what kind of weapons he has. You got to be able to
you know what I think is worse than not being able to put a run game together to manage the clock right is to have a run game that you can manage the clock right with and not fucking using them. You know what I mean, Coach Campbell? Like, do you know what I mean? I mean, I thought about making my little slogan beneath my name today, being like, "Run the fucking ball, Campbell." Christ, like, dude, it's hilarious. And you always bitch about it every time they play. You're in the chat, you're talking about it. It's just I don't understand it, and I'm looking forward to hearing some other opinions later this evening about that.
So hypothetical for you guys.
Okay.
We just saw Mike Vrabel get fired in Tennessee.
Yep.
And we saw Derrick Henry's essentially like thank you Tennessee speech.
Yep.
Would that be an interest? Am I crazy to think that'd be an interesting landing spot for him in Houston?
No, I don't think so. What's
Derrick
the cap
Henry?
space for?
Yeah.
What's the cap space for Houston?
They got a ton. That roster's pretty bare.
Okay, so Derrick Henry's probably going to take what?
I think he's a 4, 5, 6 guy right now.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
8,
let's say
8 at the max.
Let's say high end on that he gets 8. So 8 for what? 2? 8 for 1? 8 for 3?
I think it's a 2-year deal. He's signing a deal. It's probably a 2-year deal. I just think fitting that offense, right? I think that's going to be their focus. Do you bring in a guy like him who's a proven commodity, or are you looking to the draft? I guess would be my question.
I feel like
you can do both, right?
Right.
You certainly can do both.
I feel like the primary focus has to be the draft. It has to be, right?
That's fair.
Like, you've got to be able to breed something into that, and you want young rather than old. Look, Derrick Henry is not. I've really, this season, I've firmly believed now that he's on the back nine of his career, but I also think that. I also think about like Ezekiel Elliott, right? Like he got to a point where he was kind of stagnant at Dallas. He goes to New England and he kind of does big things for him. Like he's really kind of a key player, at least in the run game. He carries his weight, does what he needed to do. And maybe there's something like that can happen for Derrick Henry. I'm just curious as to whether or not I need to know how much gas is really in the tank with Derrick.
Listen, I'll tell you on that note, man, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars, who got hit for 19 for 153 in week 18, would tell you there's some diesel left in that tank.
There is some, but how much? Like,
right. It's a year or 2 years.
If I'm the Texans, I'm looking. There's some other guys out there. Josh Jacobs.
I'm not even so much worried about the years.
You're going to pay 15 for Jacobs.
Though. Well, you are going to pay more, but you just said they got the money.
Oh, they got tons.
Yeah, DeAndre Swift is available. I mean, he had a really good year after being hurt a lot.
He stayed healthy.
There's
some 24, 25-year-olds out there.
So educate me on the franchise tag. So like Tony Pollard, franchise tag running back. Does that apply this season as well? Is he locked in for a number of years?
Could be. Running backs. I mean, the Giants have already said they're not going to tag Saquon again. I don't think the Raiders are going to tag Jacobs again.
It makes sense for Dallas to franchise tag. And not that it matters because Dallas is fucking out of the show, but I need to educate myself on the franchise tag.
It ends up it's expensive. It's expensive against the cap, and a lot of teams aren't willing to spend that money at the running back position. Is what it really boils down.
So, what do you think that Dallas does in this situation? Do they try to retain Pollard, or do they try to play the market?
I think Pollard's a free agent.
I think so. They're going to retain him.
So Pollard's another option. Ooh. Listen, Pollard's another option in Houston.
I hope they retain him.
even though you're right, like
I hope they retain him.
I would let him walk if I were Dallas, but
I would too.
I mean, they're keeping Mike McCarthy. Like, why the fuck wouldn't they?
That's true. Jerry doesn't like to admit when he's wrong.
Listen, we fucking love losing, dog. Like, I don't think, like, we like getting real deep into it and then losing.
I think Jerry loves winning. I think he really wants to win, but also Jerry's problem is Jerry only wants to win if Jerry gets 100% credit.
I don't think Jerry knows how to win.
I don't think he knows how to win.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I don't think he knows how to. I think he loves winning. Right. I think he has to do it on his own terms, and he doesn't know how to build a winner.
And he thinks he does, but there's guys out there. Like I see the Pollard thing, and I'm like, it sounds a lot like what they might fucking do.
Maybe
just fucking like
run it back.
Ezekiel Elliott's only 2 years older than Pollard.
Yeah,
and I think he could have had more success this year than Pollard wasn't very good.
Yeah.
No.
They
I
just
think
were
Pollard.
like, Pollard.
I think Pollard proved himself to be like he's going to be a really great committed like second running. Like he's a committed second
Good
string. He's the
compliment,
ideal.
Yeah,
He's an ideal complement to
Let
an
him
Ezekiel
play in
Elliott.
someone's thunder.
Like, dude, imagine him with a fucking Derrick Henry. That'd be fire. That'd be a fire combo.
But
You
he's
get
already. My big thing with him is he's already old in terms of running backs because like he's like a
For
year
sure.
younger than Dalvin Cook. He's 2 years younger than Zeke, who he took up for. He's 2 years younger than Austin Eckler. You know,
Right.
we're the same age as Saquon Barkley, like a year older than fucking Josh Jacobs. Like,
Less total touches, so maybe you balance that. But
I don't know if I
disagree.
like that logic just because I don't know that teams look at that
One thing is for certain.
as much as just age.
Yeah.
One thing is for certain. Tony Pollard is going to be a starter somewhere else.
Miles Sanders was a starter in Carolina.
He's going to start somewhere, and
He's
we all know that
he's going to start in fucking Saskatchewan.
This man is a fucking Colt. This man is a Colt McCoy. He's a fucking career backup.
He might start in Carolina. That's fair. They're going to be
everybody that ever watched the game
of
football knew that like it wasn't a good idea for Carolina to bring in Miles Sanders as their feature back with that Philly success with the line.
Yeah,
and they did.
Age catches up quickly with running backs, man. It really does. Yeah. There's very few examples in the history of, especially in recent history of the game, of running backs.
Stocks are down on running backs right now. They really are because they just
AP, Derrick Henry,
high risk, high reward.
Emmitt Smith is probably like the start of this era, and he's kind of the prime example of a guy that, like back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, man, running backs went forever, but it was also a different game.
Right.
It wasn't. Right. It was a very plodding 3 yards in a cloud of dust style of game. Now, if you can't hit a home run, you're fucking washed.
And you were getting tackled by some fucking dude from the DFW who's laying brick all day. Like, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you're getting hit by fucking missiles from all over. So, no, the running back position is. The Cowboys are going to do the exact opposite of what I think they should do because that's what fucking Jerry does. But man, I can't.
He's the worst.
I can't imagine looking at that roster and saying I have to bring Tony Pollard back.
Right.
I can't do it.
Yeah.
Which is why they're gonna.
I mean, listen, the Dak extension. No, listen.
He's getting 60 this offseason, bro.
Listen, man's going to get paid, and I think regardless of whether or not, look, he admitted he sucked. I'm not even. I'm
fine with that getting paid, by the way.
But yeah, no,
I thought he had a great year.
That's what I'm here to say. He fucking honestly, he redeemed himself this year to me. Like I've never once believed in that man until this year. I'm like,
great
okay,
year. Phenomenal.
He's here. Yeah, I mean, honestly,
it is.
Bro, they had a fucking 420 strength of schedule and a 370 strength of victory.
What does that mean?
Dak's fucking season is about 40% of fucking what his numbers actually say.
I mean, I can say that about some other players in the playoffs too. Like,
what is that? Hold on. What does that mean?
The winning percentage of teams they played was under 500 by 80 fucking points.
Oh, okay. So you're just talking shit. All right, whatever.
I'm just letting you know that Dak's season is fucking smoke and mirrors.
Either way,
the real Dak is the Dak we fucking saw in the first round of the playoffs. He's fucking dog shit. Period. I hope they pay him $60 million because that means I ain't got to worry about them being in the fucking conference championship for the next 8 years.
Yeah. So when they go in the conference championship next year,
they won't.
What are you gonna do?
I'll eat crow. I've done it before on this fucking show.
No, you're going to fucking
that's
eat
crow.
something.
I ain't gonna fucking eat. That's crow. I ain't fucking eating.
So I mean, they had a stronger strength of schedule than two of the teams left.
Okay.
And barely a weaker schedule than San Fran. Just barely. Like they're next to each other. They're in a duplex.
Okay.
And they had a harder schedule than Detroit and Kansas City. Baltimore had a tough schedule.
Yeah.
I think Baltimore had the toughest schedule in the league.
Well, they played in the AFC North. Everybody in the AFC North was at the top. I think
right.
all 4 AFC North teams were like at the top.
So I mean, again, while I'm not disputing what you're saying, I'm just saying, like, here we are
in relation to the folks that are left.
Yeah, there's.
And also, I think really what Andy's trying to say, Gary, just to make sure you're looking, is that fuck you. Is what he's trying to say.
Yeah, that is what I was saying. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't. But you know, there's other teams. Tampa Bay was right in the ballpark. Theirs was harder. But like, if I look up the teams that had the toughest strength of schedule, like only 2 top 10 teams made the playoffs.
Right.
So, and one of them's still there. One of them got beat by the team who's still there because the Texans had a hard schedule. But yeah, I mean, it's all relative. 20 minutes, Raul. Come on, what are you doing here?
Dude, I mean, we're doing great. We got fucking 4 games. Who cares? You know, we got to cover at least an hour in 4 games. So on to the next, I guess. Green Bay Packers against the Niners. To no one's surprise, it's the Niners. They're going to the chip. What? They're going to the chip.
I always knew not to fucking try to rely on Green Bay for anything.
I mean, come on, dude.
I don't think I'd have them change the light bulb in my house.
All right. Listen. Okay, so we can at least agree that Jordan Love is a solid quarterback, and he's going to be somebody that they should invest in.
Perhaps. We'll see. I don't know.
Listen, Gary, give me an objective opinion.
He knows. We've went back and forth on this all season. Like, yeah, the good to me is 50-50 with the bad. I've seen a ton of it. I mean, and again, that's another weak strength of schedule team. You know, that NFC North played a shit schedule. I mean, they're like in the bottom 5 with strength of schedule. So I still watch Love do things that don't work in the NFL. So we'll see. Either he's way better than I think he is, like way, way, way better, or he's middle of the road.
So the one thing that I think, and I guess, Gary, just going to lead this question right into you, is I think we can all agree that San Francisco looked beatable, right? And not having Deebo Samuel is a huge part of that, right? So, Gary, what are your thoughts on San Fran's victory without Deebo and their chances moving forward, either with or without him?
Deebo's probably the most important piece of that offense, and I know people are going to argue Christian McCaffrey.
He's kind of an Achilles heel, at least we've seen it.
I'll be frank, like, I don't have a lot of arguments against Christian McCaffrey. All of my justification for Deebo, for me saying Deebo is the most important part, is all about like what Deebo does for this offense. So what they do with Deebo is what makes him the most important cog in this offense. And being able to move him out wide, move him in the backfield, flex him off the line of scrimmage. He can block in the run game really well. He's a guy that just does everything, and he does everything pretty well. He may not be elite in anything but like breaking tackles, because I still stand by the fact he is the hardest tackle in football. But that also brings with it the risk of what happened this past weekend, man. He's fighting for extra yards. He gets landed on by a couple of players and bums his shoulder, and he can't return to the game. A couple of factors in this game, right? Couple for the Niners, couple against the Packers, couple for the Packers, couple against the Niners. The weather was an advantage for the Packers because they, one, are a team that plays in bad weather all the time. And 2, they've got a quarterback who is used to those elements, whereas Brock Purdy, it showed that he's not a guy who can throw in bad weather. And I think, Mo, you brought it up last week or maybe a couple of weeks ago on an episode that we were talking about Brock Purdy and the fact that in a couple of his stinkers this year, it's been bad weather. He's not a good bad weather quarterback. In fact, it might have been you in the chat during the game that we were talking, but He's not a good bad weather quarterback.
It was during the game. It was in the rain.
Right. Yeah. There you go. And you were the one that said it. And you're absolutely right. He looked lost until that last drive for 3 3/4 of this game. He looked pedestrian. For the Packers, the fact that they were able to establish the run game against the 49ers, which is a pretty strong front, says a lot about their future, because the offensive line was kind of in shambles at the end of Rodgers' tenure, because you had guys like Runyon and you had now his name eludes me, but their left tackle for fucking ever had been in and out of the lineup all the damn time. So you just their ability to reload on the offensive line bodes well for them. The question about Jordan Love, I am still trying to figure out if Jordan Love is a good quarterback or if he's an average quarterback. The one thing I would like to see from Jordan Love is him to become his own quarterback. And what I mean by that is something we've talked about on the show, but also we've talked a lot about in the group chat. He spent 2 years behind Aaron Rodgers, right? He was a sponge behind Aaron Rodgers, which is great because he's one of the most intelligent, one of the most talented, one of the most physically capable quarterbacks that's ever played the game. But he kind of mimicked him too much. He almost became Aaron Rodgers with less talent, with less ability. I shouldn't say talent necessarily, but ability, right? And when I say that, I mean,
it's probably just less stick time, right? Like
I don't think it's stick time. I think it's just raw ability. And what I mean by that is we watch Aaron Rodgers all the time throw off platform, feet fucking situated weird, but he gets his hips and his shoulders square and he can throw darts all over the field. Jordan Love doesn't have that same ability with the football that Aaron Rodgers does.
So and that's not a knock on you're talking about more from like a physical, technical ability.
Physical ability and that technical as well. That's not a knock on Jordan Love because I think he's a gifted physical specimen. I think he's athletic. I think he's got a very good arm. There's one guy in the history of the game that's been able to play the game the way that Aaron Rodgers plays it. Every other quarterback in the history of this game has been told, don't do the things that Aaron Rodgers was able to do and complete passes and complete touchdowns and win games. And I mean, the dude was just otherworldly when it came to his ability to make off-platform. You see it in Jordan Love. If you really want to see it, either watch some replays or watch a game next year. When he throws, he jumps off the ground when he throws, and that's an Aaron Rodgers thing. And Aaron Rodgers does it to protect his legs, to protect his knees, but Jordan Love didn't do that when he came into the league. Jordan Love also had a much more over-the-top release when he came into the league. He's much more sidearm the way Aaron Rodgers has that kind of flick release that he throws with.
Right.
I just think that he needs to get back to being kind of his own quarterback. Learn from the guy, but don't mimic him, because I think what ended up happening on that last interception that he threw, he tried to make a throw that Aaron Rodgers might have been able to make, and he couldn't.
And there appears to be some kind of just absolute overload about all this Aaron Rodgers praising Packers talk that Andy's camera seems to be failing. So what are your thoughts on all this? I mean, dude, Gary was singing some high praise here for Aaron Rodgers and his influence on Jordan Love. What do you think?
Green Bay had a very successful season. I mean,
right?
They didn't think they were going to win that many games. The youngest team in the playoffs. They did good things. Jordan Love does good things. I said that at the top of this discussion here. However, I'm with Gary. I don't know if he's really good or if he's not. Like, he does a lot of shit. Like the Aaron Rodgers mimicking is spot on. I've seen this guy throw off of his fucking back foot so many times this year. And 98% of quarterbacks just don't get away with that. Aaron Rodgers got away with it more than anybody. So, to see Love and listen, I think there's a balance there, right? Like some of that is probably helping his progression, because when he was playing like Jordan Love last year before, he looked like shit.
Yeah.
So, and he probably wasn't taking risks that Aaron Rodgers would take, right? So
I
it's
think like blending the Aaron Rodgers to what he already does is valuable. He just, like Gary said, I think you nailed it. He is figure out his place. And if he puts that together, I think he's going to be a very good quarterback. If he doesn't put that together, I think he's, maybe the 15th best in the league.
Yeah. I think it's that difference between cockiness and confidence, right? Like right now, Jordan Love's kind of playing the game cocky, but he's not really playing confident. You know what I mean? And confidence, you can back it up, right? And he just, it's not, like you said, it's not his identity. It's not who he is. He's not that guy. And maybe he can get to that point, but he's got to do some fine tuning before he gets there. So
right. And
either way,
as far as the 49ers go, because Deebo Samuel, right? They lost like 3 in a row when he was hurt.
Yep. And where are we sitting at? Like, I mean, right now it's still game time decision.
Practice
on Deebo, right?
He's playing. He may not be 100%, but he's playing.
He's going to be today. Okay, so he's going to be limited though, guaranteed.
Shoulder,
right? In some type of capacity.
Some way.
We'll see. I mean,
he'll have a strap on it, and he'll have some oxy in his system. Probably.
They lost to the Browns, the Vikings, the Bengals. I mean, not teams that are remarkable in any sense. Not teams that should be beating San Fran in back-to-back weeks. Mm-hmm. But that's just it. The Christian McCaffrey thing, Gary, like you were talking about that at the top two. I said it to a guy today, like Christian McCaffrey's a better player than Deebo Samuel. I don't think anybody would argue that. Like I
think that's a good way to put it. I think that's a good way to put it.
Deebo is more important to this team, and we've seen it over and over again. We saw it before McCaffrey was there. We see it while McCaffrey's there. Brandon Ayuk has become a very, very good wide receiver. George Kittle, amazing player, had a great year. But without Deebo, without doing – when they lose Deebo, they lose his ability to pose a running threat. They lose the screen ability, the short passes, the little crosses over the middle. Ayuk doesn't do a lot of that stuff. No. So now they're relying on Kittle, which takes Kittle out of some of those blocking schemes if he's going to get those early hitters. I just think it really changes the dynamic of this offense, and, that can spell trouble. But he's going to play. Listen, as a Lions fan, I knew he's going to play all week. Whether he's 100% or 30%, he's in the game.
Yeah, we talk a lot about players threatening the defense at all three levels, right? The short, the intermediate, and the deep game. And those are like the best wide receivers in the history of this game have been able to threaten at all three levels, right? They change the way you can cover them. Deebo Samuel threatens defenses at 4 levels, and we don't see that very often with wide receivers because he's a very good route runner. He's a very good intermediate pass catcher, possession type guy, and he can get deep. He's not their deep threat, right? Ayuk is their primary deep threat, but Deebo can hit the deep ball. But the XXX factor the Z factor or whatever that you can do with Deebo is all 3 of those. Plus, you can either throw the ball to him behind the line of scrimmage. He's going to break a bunch of tackles, or you can line him up in the backfield and just put it in his belly and let him go threaten the defense in a different way. And that is unique. And I think that is part of what makes him the most important part of this offense. Not the best player. That's a perfect way to put it, Andy.
Yeah, I've said it before. Deebo Samuel is or I'm sorry, I think I said Taysom Hill is the white Deebo Samuel. Is the way I put it. He's the utility player, but he's actually good.
The white bread. Deebo.
Yeah, dude. He's the great. I'm sorry. Taysom Hill is the great value Deebo Samuel. Yeah,
that equate version.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The defense has to adjust
100%
in the game. It's different. The offense is different because people can threaten you in different ways. Yep, absolutely.
So San Fran definitely looked beatable. Deebo's critical to it. He's probably going to be limited in his capacity in some way, shape, or form, but he's probably playing this weekend. So, all of that being said, before we get to our picks, we'll get to our picks here shortly. Any other comments on Green Bay, San Fran?
One thing from me,
of course,
I think that Brock Purdy is still very limited in this offense, and I think we saw it this weekend.
Yeah.
When he was forced to make throws downfield, he missed a lot, and he missed them bad. He missed them worse than like a conference championship quarterback should be missing those throws.
For sure.
So I wonder if San Fran loses this game without Brock Purdy being hurt, if they won't be in the quarterback market this offseason, because their window, they're very much focused on, we want a Super Bowl now. They're not too worried about 10 years down the road. So we'll see.
So
that's all hypothetical.
Any seller's remorse on the Trey Lance? No?
I don't think so.
Dallas had an opportunity to put him in garbage time and didn't. I don't think San Fran's worried about that.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, look, we're trying to fluff some numbers here. Dak's got to look good and marketable. So
I think Trey Lance was always brought in as like the project, and he turned into like the project that you can't ever hand in.
Yeah, you found out the floorboards were missing.
Right. It was just like you spent all night on this paper, and you fucking like feel good about it. You look at it in the morning, and you're like, "Fuck, I was stoned last night when I wrote
this in crayon."
Yeah, and now you can't hand the shit in. He's just
hold on. You wrote that in what?
Crayon. No, it is not crayon.
Okay.
So it's like C-A or C-R-A-N.
Crayon. Cranberry.
Get him, Raul, because you always do this shit to me. Go. I mean,
C-R-A-N. Crayon.
Yeah.
Crayon.
It's crayon.
But that's not how it's spelled, right?
It's not how it's spelled.
Right.
It's not how crick is spelled either, but.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're just like openly wrong.
That's the country, I mean, I guess.
You're not country, so let's start there.
I actually grew up very country, homie.
No. You grew up like Amish country, not like South country. It's different.
But they're both country though, still, right?
I
mean, true. It's a different kind of, but like you're like
right, like hillbillies and rednecks are different dudes.
Right. I'm not a hillbilly. Right. It's different.
I'm not saying you're a hillbilly. I'm saying hillbillies and rednecks are different.
Right, for sure. But you're
I grew up redneck. I did not grow up hillbilly.
Yeah, but I grew up redneck. I grew up a different kind of redneck.
Oh, sure.
I'm not hillbilly.
Yeah. Right.
You're like I don't know.
You guys are fucking arguing over who's like the better redneck, and none of it's good.
Y'all are like prairie dogs. I don't know what y'all are.
Prairie dogs.
I've never met a person who had less of a grip on what New York State was than Raul.
I could not. The thing is, though, is that like
you guys got fucking kangaroos up there,
right? And there's only really one city in New York that borders like 6 hours from my hometown.
Anything that borders Canada, dog, is fucking Canada. It's Canada. Like it's honestly, I don't know the Dakotas. I don't even know where they are. They're Canada. Like anything north of like,
I mean, one of them doesn't border Canada, so if that helps you.
No, for sure. I think it might be north that doesn't, right?
I mean, it borders a state that borders, but that's a slippery slope because eventually you're going to be in Texas talking about, well, it borders this and this and
no,
this.
But like even fucking like Montana, if it weren't for Yellowstone, fucking Canada. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, dude, if y'all get like feet and feet of snow, Canada. You know?
All right.
You all have moose.
I mean, listen, give it a few years. We don't have
polar bears. You all have them all. Yeah.
Polar bears.
Yeah, like, dude, you guys have it all. Like that doesn't.
Fucking polar bears.
All right.
Yeah. Anyways, we're fucking doing it. What a program. I'm so glad you guys tuned in. The screen is so small, I can't even read it. Bucks and Lions, of course. Look, listen, that was no surprise. All credit to Baker Mayfield. Great redemption. Stocks up on Baker, right? Baker better get paid. But it's the Lions. And it was going to be the Lions. We all knew it was going to be the fucking Lions. And, Andy, any heart attacks? Any concerns? Any takeaways?
Oh, yeah, there was a bunch, man. Like, it was a good game. Tampa came to play.
Yeah, for sure.
My wife has determined she does not like to watch Lions games with me. So, like, all the viral videos you might see of somebody watching a Lions game that's a Lions fan, it's probably could have taken place in my household.
Straight punching air.
I mean, I saw a cool like bingo card that a girl made because her boyfriend or husband, whoever he was, is a Lions fan. And it was this bingo board of shit that goes on during a Lions game. And I sent the video to my wife, and she goes, I could have had that done in the first quarter.
Yeah.
So, here's me with my fucking Lions blanket on, like a fucking cape, just living in the moment of like, what the fuck, Dan? Run the ball to like, yeah, baby, Gibbs, let's go. Like just total fucking roller coaster. And, listen, this is cool. I know what everybody fucking is talking about with the playoff shit. Like, this is kind of fun. I like it.
It's cool to fucking win sometimes, right?
Fuck, man. It's cool to even be here. It's just like, just to not fucking.
Listen, Senior just sold y'all ass out.
We're like 30 miles from
30 miles, bro. I'm probably 1,000 miles from there. You're Amish. Y'all shits are Amish.
Miles in New York are very different than miles in Texas.
You're Jebediah redneck out there. That's different.
You can ride fucking like 600 miles in Texas and never see a fucking building.
Yep.
Or a person.
Miles in New York are very
or another car. Oh, it is true.
That's not true, dude.
It is true.
That's not true.
There's no way it's not.
You're not gonna not see another car,
another fucking nothing, dude.
That's not true.
I drove from El Paso to Shreveport across that state, and I can confirm that is fucking true.
Bang bang.
600 miles, not a chance.
600 miles. Okay,
you would see. No, dude.
Yeah,
a couple hundred miles, probably.
No, I drove like 160 miles in Ohio without seeing anything.
There were hours where I didn't see another vehicle or a building.
Yeah, fucking A, dude. Just boring.
Okay.
Shit, dude.
So that's
just more places
80,
to like
160 miles.
They're like Texas. Like we need all this empty space so we can hide our guns from fucking Joe Biden.
Hezekiah,
Corey,
from fucking Ezekiel and them Amish folk come down here and they try to take our weapons.
See. Okay, so physics tells us that if you're going 80, 160 miles in 2 hours. So again, not 600. But I know I get your point.
Physics.
Anyway, I know I interrupted
state,
you there,
bro. What do you listen? Its excellence is large and vast.
Yeah, you guys are almost as cool as Alaska.
Oh, bro. I don't want to be Alaska. I'm cool being second. I'll take silver medal. I'm cool with that, dude. We have summer,
Fuck. All year round, too. What do you got going on right now?
Probably low 50s, maybe.
That's summer.
Yeah. Look, we're our only real bad.
That tells you anything.
It got below freezing last week, right? We talked about it, but like our one bad month a year is February. If we can make it through February, we're good. So I would say bad weather is probably 2.5 months of the year. Everything, and I say bad weather meaning below freezing.
Right on.
Interesting.
Everything else is fucking fantastic.
Yes.
So we live in large out here, but I'm also happy in 110. I'm good with that.
Ugh. I would die.
Because you can stay, bro. AC systems are fire. You know what I mean? It's all good.
I would just surrender myself. When I had to go to the store or something, I'd be like, "Fuck this."
It's not that bad.
Not just Jesus. Can we mute him,
bro? We have everything, bro. We have mountains. We have hills. We got everything. Listen, don't do all that, but don't move here either. So that's fair. You know what? You're right. Texas sucks. Don't fucking move. And definitely don't fucking vote here if you're coming from a blue state. Get the fuck out of here.
Property value is fucking sweet.
Property value sweet. State income tax is fucking on a milk carton, bud. We're doing all right.
Infrastructure, crazy good.
Crazy.
Except for 6 weeks out of the year. I'm fine with that. You're telling me I don't have to travel for 6 weeks? That's fine. Okay. Oh no.
Shit.
We get extra days off whenever it's below 20. I'm fine with that.
So how about the Lions Bucks?
Lions, yeah. Mode.
Yeah, so anyways, no, we were talking about the Lions. That was a thing. So listen, conference championship. Mode's getting his flowers. I interrupted to talk about Texas because it is more important, but not right now. In the grand scheme of things, it's important. But
I mean, it's like I picture the whole state of Texas just kind of being like Flint, Michigan, and that's fine. But yeah, no, the Lions, they're listen to keep rolling, to go into this game in San Fran, big dick energy. Looks like we'll be without Laporta finally. Doesn't seem like he's going to play. They did sign Zach Ertz. We'll see if they're saying we'll see if he comes up from the practice squad. He's going to come up because we're also without Brock Wright, which leaves us with just Mitchell. So you're not going to roll out one tight end, I wouldn't imagine. But Dan Campbell does all kinds of crazy shit, so I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, we'll see. Listen, I just got to have the fucking faith in what they do there. Jared Goff's really good. The running game looks good when we use it. I've got to be more confident than I have been. However, San Fran's a dangerous team. I've kind of ridden them all season. They were my pick. I think before the season started, they were my pick at the beginning of the playoffs. I at least had them in the Super Bowl to start the season. I don't know if I had them winning, but yeah, tough shit. Good games to be played. Deebo Samuel, important. Let's roll.
Yeah, I only have 1 point with this game. Mode gets his flowers for Detroit here. Moving on, and MCDC delivered on exactly what he said he was going to do when he came to town. But I love that Baker Mayfield won a playoff game while the Cleveland Browns, who cast Baker Mayfield aside for Deshaun Watson and whatever Kevin Stefanski thought he was doing when he got Baker Mayfield murdered 7 times during the 2020 season. I love that Baker
Coach of the Year, Stefanski.
Yeah, that fucking guy. I love that Baker got a win. I love that it looks like he's going to get a long-term deal in Tampa to stay in Tampa. I've been defending Baker in a lot of ways with people that just say, he sucks. No, Cleveland did him fucking dirty, and I'm glad that Baker's gotten to a place where they embrace him. He's got some playmakers that he can play with. It's not a fucking Carolina. It's not LA on fucking 2 days fucking notice. And I love that he won a playoff game. Hats off to Baker. I hope he gets his payday and he continues to improve there in Tampa because it seems like they really like him there. Right. And I think that's all he really needed to get to was a place that wasn't going to be impatient with him and was going to embrace him. That team, Mike Evans has a lot of that kind of attitude and swagger, and I think Baker fits right in with that roster and that team. And it seems like they've got a good thing going there. So I'm happy for Baker on that side.
I'm going to keep talking my Texas shit real quick and just say, look, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, Lake Travis High School graduate, fucking Dan Campbell, A&M, I mean, went to high school in Texas. I mean, listen, we're out here, right? And we are like Flint, Michigan, in that we're getting zero help from the government. The only difference is we don't actually need it. But
I mean, I don't think they do it this way either. They're just fucking 17 fingers, don't matter.
Yo, fucking Chernobyl, Michigan, dog. So, anyways, we'll get to the conference champ picks either. But again, Mode, I mean, congrats, bro.
One more thing for me, about the Lions before we roll.
Send it.
I think like Dan Campbell is a good lesson in not taking shit at face value all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm reminded of like the introductory press conference with Campbell, right? And people thought that shit was a fucking joke. I mean, you can go Google the names. There's a bunch of these guys out there who are like, this guy's fucking off his meds. They hired Brad Holmes, who was like the fucking college scout for the Rams. This shit is not going to work. Campbell's a meathead, this and that. And a lot of that often reminds me of what we say about players during the combine, right? This guy doesn't jump high. He doesn't run fast. He has small hands. His arms are short, shit like that. Or like we're judging a quarterback off of his fucking vertical. Those stupid face value things that don't necessarily apply to the game of football. They don't apply to life sometimes. And I think like this is a perfect situation to just look at that and be like, fuck, man, Brad Holmes really knows what the fuck he's doing. Like his draft resume since being in Detroit is probably unrivaled. That's
exemplary.
Stan Presti shit. Like, this is
Michelin star.
Renee Sewell, you're talking Hutchinson, you're talking, I mean, listen, if it weren't for the fact that the Texans drafted a quarterback and the edge rusher this year, Detroit probably easily has the best draft class. I mean, you've got 4 starters right out of the bricks, plus a quarterback on the back burner and a defensive tackle that may eventually develop. But I think the face value shit, when you look back, it's like we do this shit all the fucking time. And, you know, this is just a very good example of maybe we shouldn't fucking do that.
This is the whole point. The whole point is that here at Backyard Sports, on the Blitz specifically, I won't speak for Tailgate, but on the Blitz, we don't know shit about fuck ultimately, because you can knock any player. I mean, how many people talk shit about Tom Brady in the combine? And we just, you never know how the cookie's gonna fucking crumble, you know?
Yep.
So anyways, on to the next one. Final game here. Kansas City at Buffalo, and man,
we got tricked.
Listen,
again, we got tricked.
Can we put our tinfoil hats on right off the bat? Like right off the bat?
I don't have one.
No. I mean, look, Bass deactivated social media. This man's receiving death threats, understandably. I'm not saying it's okay. We don't condone that here on the Blitz. However, I mean, look, I promise you that man is beating himself up.
Oh, yeah.
Plenty.
Who's the guy for San Fran that muffed the punt back like 6 or 7 years ago?
Williams.
Was it Williams?
Kyle Williams. It was Williams.
It might have been.
He not only muffed a punt, he fumbled on a kickoff in that game too.
But like, still, like when it becomes to a point where like we've talked about this on this show before, right? With fans just overstepping.
So dumb.
You know, the price of admission doesn't buy you to be able to say whatever you want. And like social media opens up this whole other can of worms where it's like you feel perfectly okay with degrading, demeaning, threatening somebody over a fucking sport. Like it's like this dude didn't come into your house and fucking bang your wife. Like
right.
People have to do better. Like people aren't shit.
It's times like this that like I go back to like my kind of standby when people are shitty and toxic and assholes. Like there are times where I wonder how the fuck we are the apex predator and stay there. Like how the fuck do we stay atop the fucking food pyramid? Because we are a fucking rancid species sometimes. And this is a perfect example, right? Tyler Bass, who he's had his struggles all year. There's so many other things in this game that I'm going to critique that have absolutely fucking dick to do with Tyler Bass missing that field goal. Now, I get it from a Bills fan's perspective. And as my dad said here, right? Wide right are 2 words that haunt Bills fans, and it will haunt
them. Of Scott Norwood, kid.
Exactly. Until they win a Super Bowl, wide right is going to haunt them for fucking ever. But man, listen. I have issues with a lot of things in this game. My prime issue, my number one issue is Scott McDermott still has a Sean McDermott still has a fucking job.
Yes.
Almost a week after losing that game. Like that's a problem to me because that tells me exactly what Jerry told me when he said he's going to keep Mike McCarthy. That tells me that ownership doesn't actually care about winning football because Sean McDermott fired Leslie Frazier and took over the defense. Sean McDermott fired Dorsey mid-season, and we still lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. I don't hang any of this on Josh Allen. I don't hang any of this on the players at all. I am 100% hanging this on Sean McDermott because he got summarily fucking undressed by a Chiefs team that I think all 3 of us and the media kind of all together were in agreement that, like, this isn't the Chiefs' offense of the past. They're relying on their defense to win games. You scored 24 points against the number 3 defense in the NFL in your building, yet you couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes, a washed-up Travis Kelce who went for a fucking $120. You didn't cover him at all. He had averaged 39 yards a game in his last 10 games coming into this game. He had 64 in the first half and 2 touchdowns. And you allowed a wide receiving core that everybody had been beating up all year to get loose on you. I hang 100% of the blame for this loss on Sean McDermott. It is his inability to scheme up the defense. I get the injuries, but I'm not letting him off the hook for those injuries because we know what this offense was prior to this week. You couldn't get off the field. You couldn't make a stop anywhere. You had no plan of attack for Travis Kelce, and your voice is lost in that locker room. I have just a smidge of blame left for Stephon Diggs because what's that?
Give it to him.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Over the last 10 games of this season, okay, including that game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Stephon Diggs had 390 receiving yards on 80 targets. Khalil Shakir had 450 yards receiving on 40 targets. For a guy who's bitched, moaned, floated trade request rumors in the offseason, had his brother float trade request rumors in the offseason, to fucking disappear on your team like this and to drop the game-winning touchdown, hit you in the breadbasket, and he dropped another one that would have been a 20-plus play.
Yeah.
I have just a little bit left to give to Stephon Diggs. It's Sean McDermott. It's Stephon Diggs for me. The Chiefs had 8 20-plus yard plays against that fucking defense that Sean McDermott fired a competent Leslie Frazier, who had led the number 1 and the number 2 total defenses in the previous 2 years, fired him to take over, and this is the fucking product we end up with. I cannot believe he still has a job today.
All right, so Gary's throwing, absolute fucking flames.
Yeah, I've
I've
been saying it for over a year. I've been saying it for over a year, right? Sean McDermott is the problem. I'm like, go rewind the tape. I was saying that
you have been, and I've been in agreement with you, but you've been the most vocal about it.
He is not the guy. And listen, I have to credit him with some things because I think he was the guy to build this team up, a young unit, give them hope, coach them that way. But there was definitely a point early last year, mid last year, where I was just like, this is not going to work with him. And then the window closed again last year in the same fucking way it closes every year. And then we were all dumb enough to pick them against the fucking Chiefs again. And I beat the shit out of myself over this pick all week.
Well, listen, it's something that I think it's something that we always want to have faith in. Look, Josh Allen was building steam, right? And so we lose sight of McDermott when that happens, right? So I think we're guilty of that. But we can certainly all agree that at this point, we don't need to let this get to a fucking Brandon Staley position, right? Where next season, exactly. They have to move on.
They're not gonna.
Listen, I know I wrote this.
That's going to speak volumes about the organization, honestly, to the fan base. Bills Mafia is going to be in a fucking uproar.
It's tough to move on from a coach that wins fucking 11, 12, 13 games.
It is.
I get that. But
100%.
I'm going to give you the example, and I wrote this in our chat.
How many times do you get to? He is a elite tier edger.
Yeah. So I wrote this in our chat, and I've been putting this everywhere that I can fucking put it because
100%.
I think it describes 100%. It perfectly. They are, and this right here captures, like my dad just said here, this captures exactly the sentiment that I mean when I use this phrase. I think the Bills are at their Dungy crossroads. Now, for those of you that maybe weren't around or weren't fans when the Bucs were, before they won their first Super Bowl with John Gruden, Tony Dungy had won 11, 12, 13 games with that team for fucking 5 years. They had won the NFC South a bunch of times. And actually, back then, I think they were still in the NFC North. No, I think they were in the South. I think it was after realignment. But either way, they'd won their division. They'd won a bunch of games. They'd gotten to the conference championship game, and they couldn't get over the hump to win the Super Bowl. They had three Hall of Famers on defense with Warren Sapp, Derek Brooks, and Rondé Barber. They had a Hall of Fame running back in Warwick Dunn. They had Mike Allstott. They had John Lynch on defense as well. I mean, they had just a team littered with talent, but they couldn't get over the hump. So what do the Bucs do? They finally say, maybe this voice isn't working for us, right? And they go out and they move Tony Dungy in a move that was widely and wholly criticized by everybody with a microphone. They let go of Tony Dungy and they make a trade in which they give up draft picks to get John Gruden away from the Raiders because he was in the midst of his big run with the Raiders. They bring John Gruden in, and in year one under John Gruden with a new voice, they go and win the Super Bowl against Gruden's old team, the Raiders. I think that the Bills, if they really do want to get over the hump, I don't think the window is closed because when you've got a quarterback, we've talked about it, a quarterback as good as Josh Allen as well, I think the window is going to stay open. That voice isn't working. And I'm gonna float a name out there that I know Bills fans are gonna fucking lose their minds about.
Yeah.
But this is a ready-made roster for a guy like Bill Belichick to come in and just be the voice in the locker room. I know Buffalo don't want it. I know they don't want it. But this is a ready-made roster. All they need is somebody who's going to be able to be a voice in that locker room and who schemes up and gets more out of defensive players than Bill Belichick.
I surely thought you were going to say Ron Rivera, but I'm really taken aback by that.
Christ.
I think the window is closed.
Yeah.
Do you?
I do. Because I think they're going to lose so much this offseason.
They're pretty cap-strapped.
Unless they're able to bring back, I mean, there's a lot of important guys on the block right now.
They're pretty cap-strapped.
Go. And, like, if they lose 7 or 8 of these vital pieces, right? I mean, listen, we could be looking at a scenario where Josh Allen is throwing to no Diggs, no Gabe Davis.
Well, Diggs, they can't get rid of Diggs. Diggs' contract is fucking toast.
I might be able to get rid of him. I mean, the Carolina Panthers exist, but
they lose money on it. He has more dead money than fucking his salary hit this year.
Is Diggs staying or not?
He has to.
Gary thinks he has to. I'm
not. I'm asking the panel. Andy.
I don't think so. I don't think they want him. I don't think he wants to be there.
It's tough. I think it's the right move. I would agree with you. I think it's the right move. I just don't think they can.
Yeah, it's cheaper to keep her.
I mean, it's $5 million on the cap cheaper to keep him. But maybe.
So something that, I mean, we were talking about Sean McDermott just a second ago, and I was thinking about this. If we look at the history of the NFL, the head coach position in particular has increased dramatically in volatility, right? So it's always come in waves, right? Like in the 90s, it wasn't near as bad as it was in the early 2010s. And like now we're in this position where it's like you get a couple years, 3 max, and you're fucking done, right? So Sean McDermott in the position that he's in, Mike McCarthy, prime example of not really like just choosing to be stagnant, setting a bad example for what it should really be. I mean, it should be you need to be trading in real time. You need to be staying as up to date as possible because the evolution of the sport is very consistent. Every year there's some new type of trend that you have to follow. So if you have this stagnant coach like a Sean McDermott, like a Mike McCarthy, you can keep fucking going. Ron Rivera, all the old heads. If you're over 50 right now, bud, step out.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a lot of keeping up with the Benjamins, but it's also like the money is flush enough in the NFL now.
Dan
that,
Campbell excluded.
the money's flush enough in the NFL now though that like teams don't, like we just mentioned a moment ago, right? There's you know, and the NBA is on the previous show we mentioned a few moments ago, I guess, but the Bucks are paying 3 head coaches right now. The NBA has so much money. The NFL has more money than the NBA, and I think that's why teams are willing to move on from coaches quicker as well. They don't mind eating $5 million to get a coach out of there if they think they can win with someone else. So it
Right,
does.
but
It contributes.
we
to what
all
you're saying in
agree
terms of
that
volatility.
McDermott needs to be gone.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. He needed to be gone last year.
But,
It's that, but again, it's that stagnant behavior at the organizational level where it's like they're gonna hang on to it just in case.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
So it sucks.
The Ghouls not doing any favors.
Right. That's right. Well, covered all the
We have
games.
to talk positive about the Chiefs at some point, right? Or...
No, I do. That's actually a good point. I think
even talked about
the Chiefs did finally look like they had some life, right? I mean, we saw Kelsey, who Gary, at the top of the conversation, pointed out was washed. I think a washed Kelsey is still better than, 85% of the tight ends in the NFL.
Is Travis Kelce a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yes. Yes. So
I mean, the greatest tight end
is the best ever.
He may retire as the GOAT past Gronk.
I mean, he's clear. He's already a top 3, right? I mean,
right.
So
who's 3?
Tony Gonzalez.
Yes, for me, Tony Gonzalez. It would be Gronk, Kelsey, Tony. I'm quite comfortable with that. I think 4 and 5, maybe 6. You can get into some guys.
Kellen Winslow's still there.
Yeah, Winslow. I mean, you got guys like, you can talk about Gates. You can talk about Shannon Sharp. I mean, there's guys in the conversation. But
it's 3 and everybody else though right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen. Here it is. Here we are. The fucking conference championship.
Playing conference championship.
And now the Chiefs kind of look like they could fucking win a Super Bowl. We talked about it early, right? It's not if they get it right, it's when they get it right. And I know I said that a couple times, and I don't think anybody really disagreed with me.
They waited long enough.
In the year we were like, well, they're not going to get it right, and then
they waited fucking long enough.
Bang! Here we are. All you got to fucking do sometimes is get in.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what I feel like?
You got a blanket.
I feel like the NFL season is like that first Fast and Furious movie where Brian's Paul Walker's getting ready to race Vin Diesel, and he presses his NOS button too soon.
Yeah.
And he gets ahead. You know what I mean? And then
granny clutching when you should be double shifting.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you never had me, you never had your car. It's Pat Mahomes in the fucking, you know what I mean? In the RX-7.
Oh my God! Somebody has to make that meme with him and Josh Allen's heads.
Yeah. That's what it is.
Done deal.
Yeah. Tough for Josh Allen. It's tough for Josh Allen because
blows past him, celebrating. Vin Diesel looks at him.
It should be Sean McDermott's head
too soon and smokes it. And then, I mean, come on, it's a legendary scene. And every time I think of Pat Mahomes in the postseason, that fucking comes to mind.
You know what? I think it should be Sean McDermott's head, but at the same fucking time, Josh Allen is going to get the same treatment that we would give any quarterback.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's you, bud. You cannot beat this team. You cannot get over this fucking hump. We, and I mean a lot of people nationwide regarded you as the second or third best quarterback in the NFL for the last few years now.
Yeah.
And I just, at some fucking point, you can maybe hang your hat on the fact that you keep losing to the guy who's probably the consensus number 1, but at some fucking point, the quarterback has to kind of fall on his sword here, right? And as much as Josh Allen does these great things, I mean, he can't beat Mahomes. Not when it counts.
Not when it counts.
And we talked about this Peyton Manning, Tom Brady dynamic. It's just I'm not going to give it that because Peyton
we've also
Manning isn't
seen-
holding up his end of the deal here.
We've also seen Josh Allen shook in multiple games this season, and so we've seen it a couple times over the years where you can see it. The
Right.
moment you see him sitting on the bench and you see that blank look in his face, it's like, oh shit, he's gone.
But like Josh
You
seemed
know?
to fix it late this year. It was like, here we go. Now he's on the run. But the outcome ends up the fucking same. And it's just
He had no turnovers in this
He-
game.
no, I'm not saying he played poorly.
Like,
Matt
it's
Stafford
like-
didn't play poorly against the Lions
But you're
either.
100% right. The quarterback gets the credit when you win, the blame when you lose. Man, it's hard to from Josh's perspective, man. Like, it's hard to feel like, fuck, man, I played as good as I could fucking play almost, and we still fucking lost.
Yeah.
Oh, that's tough. That's
At some point, I just feel like the really great ones put it on their back.
Yep.
No matter what, right? Like, no matter what,
Yep.
Tom Brady and, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, these guys, just Peyton Manning, they weren't going to fucking lose.
Willed their team to win.
And Allen hasn't been able to do that yet. It's just tough from the outside looking in, and it's probably worse for a Bills fan to see it happen the same fucking way every year. And listen, I've been the biggest critic on this show of the Bills. I do it every year. This was the year I picked them to win the division. I picked them to win this game. And now I'm joining the party. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck?
Tough go.
Yeah, it's a tough go for Buffalo. They've got some decisions to make and some, complacency to address. I'm sorry.
Tough go, Buffalo.
There's an Airbnb next door in there. Apparently the tenants are letting their fuck trophies run and yell in the back, which is great. It's enjoyable for a night out on my patio. Well, Gary, what do you say we get to the most important part of our show?
Sure.
So every episode, veteran-owned podcast here. So thanks for tuning in, folks. Every episode we dedicate to a fallen service member. In our Folds of Honor sponsor segment, we call our Salute to Service.
All right, this week's episode goes out to 2 fallen service members. They fell recently. They went missing at sea on January 11th while trying to board a ship carrying Iranian weapons near the coast of Somalia. Both these service members were members of the elite Special Operations Force known as the U.S. Navy SEALs. Navy Special Warfare Operator First Class Christopher Chambers. He was a Massachusetts native. And Navy Special Warfare Operator Second Class Nathan Gage Ingram both went missing at sea. The military, the DoD, has called off the search, and they have been pronounced deceased. Special Warfare Operators Christopher Chambers and Nathan Ingram, we have to watch.
Well, I guess there's only one thing left to do. And that's to preview the conference championships. All right, so trying to make sure we're all on the same page here. Excellent. So in the AFC side, Kansas City in Baltimore, and we're all riding with B more.
It's gonna age well.
Yeah,
I can't. I get a board. It's actually behind me over here, like the family picks. I sat there this morning before I had to go to work, because somebody else was down here, and I fucking drew my line and then erased it like 3 times. It's weird, man. I can't. And Vegas can't either because the line's still at its highest, but it's at like 4.
Yeah.
Which Gary and we've talked about this before, right? Like that's barely breaking even for the home team.
That's home field +1.
Right. So I think let's see if it's still there. But last I checked, it was at 4.
Yep.
It's 4.
Last I knew it was 4.
It opened at 3.5, which I think is disrespectful. If I'm the Ravens, I'm a little pissed off, right? How do we go against the statistically the worst team in the playoffs?
Yep.
And we're the best. And the other 2 teams who aren't the Chiefs, we pounded the shit out of.
Yeah.
And we're opening up at 3.5, while San Fran's opening up at fucking 6.5 against the team with the same record as them. So
it should be known and understood that the good old boy system is a real thing. Kansas City's gonna get the bump off the jump. Period. And then not to mention Lamar Jackson has always been the dog. He's always been the underdog. Period. That's Baltimore's whole fucking identity with him behind center. That's what it's always been. Of course it's gonna be Kansas City.
I just can't help but think that we had
it's not fair.
We had 3 greens on Baltimore. That something bad's about to happen.
Yeah.
Listen, look, it's going to be Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl, though. Like, we know it's going to happen. So
Taylor with fucking Jason Kelce with no shirt on?
No shirt on.
No, dude, even better. Jason Kelce with no fucking pants on. Let's just do it and mean it, you know?
I mean,
a bright red thong.
Jesus Christ. Can you fucking – he's got the fucking Borat swimsuit on, that neon green shit.
Listen, the NFL is going to break one of 2 things here. They're going to break the Swift Army's heart, or they're going to break the logo streak of the last few years, because the logo is purple and red, and if it's not Ravens Niners, then they're going to break that streak. Whatever you feel about that.
That logo coloring is fucking – we're pushing it with that one.
But it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun story.
It is a fun story, and it couldn't possibly have anything to do with like the city backdrop and the city that it has something to do with.
Right. Oh, Miami is teal and red. Go fucking figure, right?
And then I saw next year is like the fucking most impartial fucking looking like aqua green blue, and then people are like the Seahawks, and I'm like, they're not that color.
Yeah.
Like that's not even close.
Yeah.
You're either navy blue or that bright neon green. Like they have nothing to do. Like if we're gonna start reaching so fucking far that we're like Victor Wembanyama over here. Like it's out of control, man. Stretch Armstrong shit.
Oh, shout out Wemby. God, you poor
Wemby and Chet last night. We saw that shit.
Listen, that was fantastic, dude.
They went at it.
It was great. I loved it, honestly. Listen,
that shit looked like 2 fucking stick figure drawings playing basketball.
It looked like fucking giraffes fighting.
Dude,
like
it is
like if giraffes had arms, dude, that's what it would be.
It's awkward to watch.
Yeah, dude. It's like trying to fight with stilts.
Dude, it's like I didn't watch the game, but I watched the highlights this morning and I was like, what the fuck is this? Wemby already does some of the weirdest shit I've ever seen a basketball player do. And then Chet Holmgren, you throw him in there. Fuck. And now we've derailed completely. And Raul didn't even stop it. What kind of fucking monitor?
You mentioned Wemby.
Yeah.
Listen, so what this game comes down to for me is the matchup of the Ravens rush offense against the Chiefs rush defense. So
yeah.
For the regular season, the Ravens are the number 1 rushing offense. And when you have Lamar Jackson at quarterback and you run the ball the way the Ravens are committed to running the ball with the 9 running backs that they tend to run out there throughout the course of a season, because inevitably 4 are going to tear an ACL and 2 are going to tear an Achilles, you're likely going to have the number 1 rushing offense. But what is surprising is that the Chiefs finished the regular season with the number 3 total defense. However, they give up 4.5 yards a carry. That's a bottom 10 rush yards per carry defense. So I think that this matchup really tilts in the favor of Baltimore being able to score points. And then on the other side of the ball, we've already talked about the Ravens defense being number 1 total defense, number 1 against number 1 sacks, and number 1 in turnovers. And we've seen that play out for them in their playoff game last week. I think that right now the Ravens are on a run, and I just think that the matchup, the way that those two matchups play out, I just feel like it's Baltimore. And I'm going to be honest, I don't care about that number. I think it's Baltimore by multiple scores. I really do. We've seen them do this. You've already mentioned it a couple of times tonight. We've seen them do this against contenders. They just beat the dog shit out of them. And we might see that again this weekend because, man, that fucking Baltimore defense is special. And I don't buy what I saw from Kansas City last week. And to get back to the number, you mentioned how the number opened really low and it's kind of stayed right there. We know, and we've talked about this, right? Vegas doesn't pick games based on like sentiment of like who's going to win, right? They pick and set lines based on how they can make the most money. And I think partially the number right now indicates a lot of public sentiment. And I think the public sentiment right now on the Chiefs is that they're back. And I think that Vegas, maybe, this is me putting on my kind of thinking cap of like what Vegas is thinking, is Vegas is going to make the most money on people who think the Chiefs are either going to win this game outright or keep this game close. And when the Ravens win by 5 or more, they're going to make a lot of money off of it. Because I just, if you stack these two teams up without the factor of like it's Mahomes in January, right? I fully understand. You mentioned it. We said it's not a matter of if, it's when. If you stack these two teams up right now, they're not close. They're not really close in terms of what these two teams have been throughout the course of this season. So
but I don't
think that number reflects a little bit of that public sentiment.
I don't think you can stack them up, Gary, though, right? Without what you left out.
No, you're right. You're right.
Because as much as I agree with you that like I'm gonna pick, I don't have a score. I don't have a score for you, but I think it's 13 points. Yep. I think Baltimore wins by 13. Like that.
Yep.
That's my guess. I haven't come up with a score yet. Maybe 20-33, something like that, 21-34. However, I can't help but have like the voice in the back of my head say,
it's Pat.
Mahomes, but it's Kelsey too, and it's Andy Reid, and it's just I don't know. I felt this way last week, and I also felt the same way about Vegas last week when they opened up at like 2.5.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's kind of fucking disrespectful. Buffalo at home. Buffalo already kicked their fucking ass in KC. What are we doing here? And then, well, lo and behold, the fucking Chiefs win. And now it's like, I think this is a different team. The Ravens obviously different than the Bills. But
still
it's like, it was like counting out LeBron, right? In like 2015 or 16. Counting out, Steph Curry in 22, things like that. Like there's certain players in certain franchises that it gets tough to just be like, well, the other team's better.
Mm-hmm.
So I
agree, man. I agree. It's not an easy thing to just blank out. And that's why I caveated it with like, if you just take that away and you stack these two teams up, they're very different teams. But there is always that factor. I'm with you. I think multiple scores, 34-21 sounds probably.
Yeah. See,
I think that seems reasonable. Maybe a 38-24 type game, something like that.
Sure.
Yeah, right around there, for sure. I think we lost Raul. He's been on his phone, in and out of service. So we'll jump ahead. We've got one more game to preview here. Detroit and San Francisco, and we're not all in lockstep. And I'm gonna get it out of the way now. I'm gonna say, like, selfishly, I ended up on the Niners a little bit because I'm gonna be rooting for your Lions this weekend. I'm on the bandwagon. I'm in. I'll be rooting for the Lions this weekend. However, we have a tendency when we all pick the same team to jinx that team. So I'm glad we're a little bit separated here with a couple on the Lions, one on the Niners. I still think the Niners are the most complete team, but I also think that having Deebo Samuel, it'll be really interesting to see how diminished he is in terms of that injury and how much it impacts him in this game. But man, the fucking Lions got some juice going right now. MCDC's got them boys playing tough, playing fucking fast and loose, playing aggressive. I certainly think the Lions are more than capable of pulling this off. I will be rooting for them this weekend. I made this pick thinking maybe my reverse mojo might help your Lions, right? I'm trying to rationalize things here, but talk to me, buddy. Talk to me about this game.
Yo, I thought the Ravens game early in the season was. He said Texas sucks. They do suck. So do people from Texas. Get him while he's not here to defend himself.
Right.
So I thought that the Ravens game was like the perfect gauge for Detroit. And you've heard it from me all season. Raul's heard it from me all season. Anybody I talk to a lot about football has heard it from me all fucking season. I loved what Detroit's doing. It's awesome. It's refreshing. However, I am going to be critical of things because I'm not like a willy-nilly fan. You know, I'm not some like I pull for this team. I'm realistic. I try to be realistic. They did a lot of things this year that were great. They did get a lot of breaks this year, though, scheduling, things like that. When they played Baltimore, I said, hey, this is the gauge. They went out and they lost like 36-6. They're fucking ass kicked in Baltimore. And that was kind of the start of Baltimore really looking unstoppable. After that, I felt like Detroit failed to make some adjustments. People watched the Baltimore film, yada, yada, yada. Now, I feel like the team's turned the corner, though, these last few weeks, including, the last 2 weeks of playoffs, the last few weeks of the season. They've figured some things out. They've made some changes on defense. Fucking Afante Melifonwu, dude, that guy, our draft pick, that's another Stafford-born draft pick, the Matt Stafford trade out of Syracuse. He got inserted in the starting lineup. He has like 3 interceptions, a couple sacks. Like the guy's a baller. C.J. Gardner-Johnson being back, huge addition. Brian Branch has become just a fucking menace as a cornerback and a safety. We have some guys that have struggled too. Cam Sutton has struggled. He's covering these number ones every week. I think Detroit, it's the heart for me, man. Like this team they can give up 180 yards a week to the best receiver on the other team, which is unheard of for a team who's winning games. They're just winning games. They're finding another way. They run the ball really well. If they watch the film that Green Bay gave them with Aaron Jones, run the football. We have a better running game than Green Bay. We have a better offensive line, probably the best line in the league. We have practically 2,000-yard rushers in Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. There's a lot of things Detroit can do to set themselves up to win against the 49ers. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to like the moment,
Yep.
And so far, they don't act like
they
don't act like a team that hasn't been here in a while.
Right. They've handled it pretty well.
And they have some guys. Obviously, Jared Goff knows what it's like to play in the playoffs. He did that. In a way, he's kind of Mr. Irrelevant at this point, right? Like he was a guy who was sent to Detroit to fucking die.
Yeah.
McVay
they hate him, then gave up picks to get rid of him.
They sent him to Detroit to just go away forever.
Instead, he came back and knocked him out of the playoffs.
And now here he fucking is looking really good.
Yep.
Behind a really good offensive line, a really good run game, a bunch of nice pieces, in a defense that tends to piss me the fuck off but comes up in big moments. Like this defense will give up 200 yards to a wide receiver, make it close, and then Derek Barnes will get his first interception of his career. Or, just a big hit on a player that brings out the dog. Like this team does some things that it's like, fuck, man. you know, maybe I was too harsh because I said all year, like, this team's a year ahead of themselves. You know, this team is good, but they played an easy schedule. I don't think this team's going to have playoff success. And here they are just making me sound like a jerk every fucking week. And you know, maybe I'm finally drinking the Kool-Aid when they've come up with the Goliath to the, you know, like, but man, I can't help but feel like shit is turned around.
Yeah, for sure. Hey man, I'm with you. Like I said, I'm on the bandwagon this weekend. We're wearing the, what do they call it? Honolulu blue, I believe is the name of the color.
Blue. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure. Let's go Lions. I hope Kelvin's in the building. I hope Barry's in the building. Hopefully they travel to San Francisco to support the team, because that was really cool to see all the legends come back, Eminem in the house, all that stuff with the home playoff games they've had so far. Detroit's really embraced it, really soaking it up, man, because you're talking 30 fucking years, right, since they hosted a playoff game, 30 years since they played in the conference championship. It's been a hell of a run, man, for sure. So,
and shout out to Jeff Daniels and Peyton Manning on breaking that fucking Bobby Lane curse.
Right.
You guys are the real MVPs.
The real MVPs. That's pretty cool. All right, man. Well, hey, excellent episode. Any closing thoughts on the way out here?
Nah, man. Just like I listen, if you're getting out there this weekend and you're fucking having some drinks and it's flowing and you're feeling good and your team's not in the playoffs anymore, let's get it. There's no better fucking story, right?
Look, Honolulu blue is a great color too.
You hate the Chiefs, okay?
Right.
I know you do, because most of you watching this shit are Bills fans. You hate the Chiefs. Most of you don't like the 49ers probably either. You don't give a shit about the Ravens. They're the AFC Bills fans. Listen, everybody, there's no better story. Unless you're in fucking Wisconsin or Minnesota or Chicago, Illinois, like, let's go. Let's go. It's Detroit,
for sure.
baby.
For sure. All right, man. Wait, for Raul, who had to bounce, Andy, and the rest of us here at Backyard Sports, this has been another episode of Backyard Blitz, brought to you by Backyard Sports. We've got 3 games left in the NFL season. That's a little bit depressing, but it's also great because we are closing in on the ultimate prize, the Lombardi Trophy. We'll be back next week to talk about the results of these games and preview the Super Bowl. Appreciate all the comments. Appreciate all the interaction. My mom's a big Mahomes fan. She's got to get that in here at the last minute. So there is one watching that does care about the Chiefs. However, she doesn't have an NFC team in it still, so maybe she'll throw some Honolulu blue on because she's down in Hawaii right now anyway. So
yeah, that Honolulu blue water, Brenda. I know you're soaking it up.
Yeah.
You can like Mahomes next week.
Yeah, exactly. But appreciate everybody in the comments. Appreciate you, Mode. Appreciate Raul and everybody else here at Backyard Sports. We are out.